What a great pleasure it is to welcome back to What's Next, Duma Ngcobo, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker, sharing some interesting insights with us. And Duma is no stranger to the industry, more than 20 years of experience in telecommunications, financial services, and he's really focused on customer satisfaction and business growth, and currently the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker. Duma is responsible for formulating and implementing strategies to ensure that operational efficiency and the customer satisfaction, and he's had some amazing customer initiatives and ways of reducing costs and really maintaining that company's market position. And Tracker, as you know, I don't know, how old is Tracker? I remember my days flying in the helicopter, and we had one of those Tracker devices that used to help you guys with, tracking stolen vehicles. But, it must be more than 25 years. I may be wrong.
Yeah, just a little over, almost 30 years old, actually, at this stage.
Wow.
Starting in the late 90s, so sort of post the 96 era, coming into today, actually.
Extraordinary. And and of course the technology's evolved quite significantly since then. We're going to chat about that later. But you guys at Tracker published some very interesting data, and you recently published your vehicle crime statistics for July to December 24. So it's basically the last 6 months of last year, focusing on business-owned vehicle data, which is, we discussed that quite in depth the last time we chatted. And it's so important for businesses to understand, their vehicles, what their vehicles are doing. Why is it so important, if you can highlight for us, for businesses to have access to this kind of data?
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. I guess I want to zoom in on a couple of aspects. The first is obviously the last 6 months of the year includes what we call the silly season. And it sounds like such a jovial word, but it really describes what tends to happen from on about October to early parts of December, where we see the spate of crime increasing rapidly. Now, this is particularly acute for business-owned vehicles, which are slightly different in their manifestation than sort of personal vehicles. And there's a few reasons for this, Aki. The first is it's almost a double payday for criminals, if you think about it, if they get hold of a business vehicle. One, there's often loot in the vehicle, high-value goods, fast-moving consumer goods, things like cell phones, particularly in the courier industry. The cigarette companies would know. They've also had their fair share of those vehicles being hijacked. So it's not just about the vehicle, but it's also about the load that is often on there. And that's a significant appetite for would-be criminals to take that vehicles. So it's super important for business owners to be aware. And there's a few things they need to be aware of. The first is the routes they're on. What are the risks associated with this route? The second is what level of training do they provide for their drivers and employees? And the third is, given the risks and the insurance risk in particular, what does it mean for them and their business and the ability to deliver to their clients?
Wow, that's so interesting. You mentioned that last quarter, and you automatically think of, when you say payday, you're 100% right. You look at Black Friday, you look at year end, you look at people getting bonuses, people are spending more online. So there's a lot of high value goods, and you don't think about the routes, for example, that you just touched on. Now, your data showed that business owned vehicles are twice as likely to be hijacked than stolen in South Africa. So why do you believe hijackings are so popular with criminals?
Yeah, I guess the way you got to think about it is hijacking is an opportunistic crime. And your typical criminals thinking about what's the most efficient way in which I can get hold of the vehicle, compromise the driver, and get away as quickly as possible. Now, hijacking is a traumatic crime where the use of weapons, particularly firearms, are often used to commit these crimes. So the driver of the vehicle is often unaware and quite vulnerable. He's thinking about, will I reach my delivery on time? Am I going to make other deliveries during the day, which is part of how he's measured from a success point of view. And often he's unaware of the dangers that are lurking. And the criminals, unfortunately, are watching. I often use the analogy of a nature program where animals come to the riverbank to obviously consume water and so on. And the predators are often watching them lurking in the background. Now, that's quite a stark image or an analogy, but I often use it in that way to try and paint the picture of what often happens. Now, typically, what we see in South Africa is post-COVID in particular, where we saw up to 8.5 billion rand of vehicles being hijacked and or stolen, particularly in the business sector. We also saw that there's been a sharp increase in the delivery, sort of what you call your last mile delivery, your courier vehicles, your FMCG, like I mentioned earlier. And that often presents a significant risk. So a criminal is thinking often about the load rather than the vehicle itself. So the hijacking is a method of simply getting through to the load and offloading and getting away. Now, it does happen at times that the vehicle gets taken as well, but quite often we see the vehicle sometimes being abandoned once the load has been taken and obviously distributed by the criminal elements.
So this is just such fascinating data that you're sharing with us about, the trends and the patterns. The other interesting trend that I picked up on is that your data is showing that business-owned vehicles are 33% more likely to be hijacked than personal vehicles, and 56% more likely to experience vehicle crime. So why are business vehicles such prime targets? I mean, the obvious one is the cargo that they're carrying, right? And it's easy money, or is it easy money? I don't know. Why is this the fact?
Yeah, I think in South Africa we had an interesting juncture, as it were. So with the rise in e-commerce, if you just think about how life changed circa sort of 2020, there we were. We used to drive into our offices every day, and the possibility of working from home, the possibility of major e-commerce shift was not there. So COVID changed all of that. And so there's a significant rise in e-commerce that we've observed. This is both on a personal basis with e-hailing vehicles, but also particularly in the business space, where there's last mile deliveries have had a sharp increase. We know people ordering things online, getting them delivered from home. That has significantly changed the game from a crime point of view. And remember, I almost positioned criminals on the lookout for what are the patterns. Remember, similar to us, they wake up every day and try and understand, where can I get my payday? So you're right. The availability of fast-moving consumer goods have certainly made that increase. So you do see that sort of distribution between personal vehicles and obviously business vehicles. Just to circle back perhaps on personal vehicles, a lot of us, when we drive to our workplaces, to schools, to sporting events, park our vehicles for a significant amount of time. And that gives ample opportunity for a criminal to steal the vehicle. So time is of the essence when it comes to theft in particular. Now, hijacking is about getting away as soon as you reasonably can, and it's about amplifying your opportunity to maximize your returns. It sounds very businesslike, but a criminal thinks in this manner. So imagine if you have 1,000 packs of cigarettes loaded in the vehicle. That's a huge payday for a would-be criminal. At practically 100% profits, regardless of the price point that he sells it at. That's the one. The second is a lot of the vehicles have parts of other vehicles loaded, sort of delivery vehicles carrying parts. So in your second-hand market, in your uninsured market, it creates a perfect sort of broth for the criminal syndicates. Then you also in Gauteng, importantly, highlighted the element of sophistication. We have some of the most sophisticated crime syndicates operating in this country. So often, stolen goods become part of a broader bartering system where if I have a stolen vehicle, I can barter it for weapons. I can barter it for smuggled tobacco and so on. So you almost got to think about it as a criminal symbiosis, as it were.
Coming to technology, for example, there's a lot of talk about AI, and AI is a really massive topic across almost every industry currently. That AI is embedded in every technology, and I'm sure at Tracker that you guys are using AI in many different aspects. How can AI be used in the context of business vehicle safety? Are you using AI in this regard?
Yeah, I think people often speak about technology in a way that seems almost esoteric and removed. The way we like to think about it is, given the insights and the freely available insights that we've collected over the last sort of 28, 29 years, what sets of information can we use to try and anticipate where things might go wrong? And that's the first question that we ask ourselves. The second is, how does this help us to allocate resources, to allocate the right technology to help our clients? And so from an AI perspective, I think all businesses are thinking about this, both from a generative sense and obviously a predictive sense. And those two sets of bits of info is what we are trying to use. So naturally, in our industry, we are thinking about where crime incidents are likely to occur, the times that the crime incidents are likely to occur. You refer to our vehicle crime index. I think one of the anecdotes we provided is that on a Friday and Saturday evening, sort of between 4 to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. is when hijacking is likely to occur. Now, that's predominantly in the consumer space. In the business space, we see out throughout pockets of the day because there's different sets of businesses delivering different kinds of goods. So in your courier space, you could find from 10, 11, 12, that vehicle being blocked at a pavement or at a boom gate or at a place of entry. And so AI enables us to try and anticipate where these things are likely to occur, but also to inform what are the solutions that we are deploying to our clients. One of them, for example, is our dash cams, which are becoming more and more useful in the South African context. In European markets, particularly in the Netherlands, there's spaces where they prescribed by your insurer. And so your AI dash cam can anticipate and help you understand risk events, a driver not wearing a seatbelt, a driver falling asleep, a driver stopping at a point where they shouldn't be. And AI can anticipate and detect these movements and obviously give a warning to the driver, but also give insights to your fleet managers to help them understand where their risk lies. So that's one specific example. Another example is different tool sets talking to each other. So your fleet owner is typically interested, where's my fleet currently? Where are my risk in relation to my fleet? What is the fuel consumption on a particular route? What is the risk based on a particular route? And more, we're seeing AI becoming a little bit more prevalent and, dare I say, ubiquitous in this space to obviously help business owners and fleet owners. So we're definitely thinking about it more and more from a tracker context.
Very, very interesting. I mean, we talk about the technologies and, all of these things that you guys at Tracker are using to counter what these criminals are going to be doing. And another interesting piece of technology that Tracker is heavily involved in is geofencing. Can you tell us what geofencing is and how it can be used to protect businesses against vehicle-related crimes?
So you almost got to think of a geofence as a virtual fencing of a particular area. And if you think about it, as a business, we think about where are points of vulnerability. And the points of vulnerability can either be in a specific location or different sets of locations. So if I'm moving goods between Johannesburg and Botsburg, the exit point and the entry point of the two different towns becomes super vital from a geofencing point of view, right? So we will mark those zones as particular points of interest. Now, when you use GPS, cellular networks, and Wi-Fi technology, you can combine those to create a breadcrumb trail between two different points, and also to create a virtual fencing, like I mentioned, of a particular point, where you draw almost a boundary around a particular map or around a point of geography. And then you can highlight certain callouts in that particular area. So you might say every time vehicles enter and exit, I want to know. Every time between this time and this time, you will deploy different risk categories. So do we deploy resources? Do we monitor? Or what is it that we do? So geofencing actually helps businesses enormously to do that. And at Tracker in the fleet space, we encourage more and more business to be thinking about this and applying their minds to generate efficiencies, convenience, and indeed safety.
It's just fascinating to see the evolution of technology in something like, you know, what we're talking about in helping combat crime and businesses that are carrying expensive cargoes, and things that we're talking about today. Just under 30 years ago, that track has been in existence. You know, those technologies were unheard of, and it's fantastic that you guys are, you know, continually evolving. The geofencing that you talk about, the AI that you talk about. What else is Tracker working on? What other kinds of technologies are you looking into to improve the protection of your clients' vehicles?
Yeah. So I think where our natural evolution today is just a little bit beyond vehicles per se. I think our journey, natively started in sort of protecting your car, partnering with insurers to reduce the risk. And then we graduated to personal safety, and there's various products and services from, being able to request a security at your beck and call and so on. What we are thinking about now, we've got a business called OK Go, which is in the asset tracking space. And if you think about OK Go, what we're trying to solve for is assets that are moving between different points. This could be nationally, this could be internationally. If you think about it, if I'm a business transporting oranges and I'm in the citrus game, everything in that journey is important to me. So the quality of fruits from the farm, the storage of those fruits en route to the ports, the temperature, and every little minutia is something I want to monitor. For example, if a door opens, that temperature change can be material in the quality of delivery on the other side. The extent to which it spins en route is material to the quality and the efficiencies that I want to gain. So certainly from a tracker point of view, we've graduated well beyond a vehicle on the one hand. That does not mean in the vehicle space, we're not thinking about different solutions. If you think about a logistics guy, he's thinking about what we call the horse, what we call the main carriage, and what we possibly call the trailer. And there's different cameras that can enable to monitor around the vehicle, that can able to monitor in cab, and that can help to monitor outside of cab. And all these different things represent different risks for a logistics vehicle or logistics owner, as it were. So it's really quite a holistic approach around the issue of risk, convenience, and it's a composite way of thinking about all these different elements.
Absolutely fascinating. And of course, you've got the network and the technology to support the capturing of this data. So, you're just utilizing that existing network and those data points to really improve those kinds of situations that you just spoke about. Now, the partnership, and I know that, you yourselves have tracked over the years, you've had a very close partnership with the police, for example. What role do you believe that the government and lawmakers can have in reducing the amount of crime, targeting businesses and vehicles in South Africa? Because let's be honest, it's not slowing down. I mean, there's obviously more food for the criminals to eat, if I can use it that way, if we look at the growth of e-commerce, for example. So how does government and lawmakers, and how do you guys work together to reduce crime?
Yeah, we've been fortunate that for a great number of years, we've had a very close-knit working relationship with the South African police. I think it goes without saying, for an incredible long time, we had the so-called SAPS contract, which enabled a really cogent partnership between the two entities. But more broadly speaking, the police have the powers of apprehension, the powers of arrest, and the powers of prosecution, which is super, super important in closing out this game. But if you start foundationally, we are all collecting data. The South African police also release their quarterly crime stats. And embedded in the quarterly crime stats, you often find what we call trio crimes. So in South Africa, more specifically, you need three elements, mainly. A vehicle to be able to commit or get away from the crime scene. You need a firearm, and you need the intent or the person who's committing the crime. And that's what the so-called trio crime is about. So the collection of data and using this data to identify where problems are going to occur or where there's explosions in crime patterns is super vital. So partnership are super, super important. But these partnerships are not just about Tracker partnering with the police. I think in the insurance industry, there's the Insurance Crime Bureau that we work closely with. There's other law enforcement entities that we work very closely with to try and apprehend would-be criminals. The more criminals are unable to commit these crimes freely is the one sort of element. The second element that I'm quite enthused about is the police have made the prescribed minimum sentence, especially where robbery or hijacking is concerned, a lot more severe. And this is off the partnerships and the insights that we share with them. And then thirdly, I think practically speaking, there's an opportunity between different, even competitors, different tracking companies to partner a lot more together on the ground. Because ultimately, we're trying to solve the same problem, if you think about it. There's not my clients and your clients. There's clients who are experiencing crime, and we have the capability to partner in a different way. We can compete on products and services, but certainly in the broader problem and in the partnership with law enforcement, there's definitely an opportunity for a little bit closer alignment, I believe.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I mean, these are really fascinating insights into this industry, and it's fantastic that you guys are keeping abreast with technological advancements and also using the technology to counter the crime that we're talking about. But I think what you've highlighted as well is the importance of understanding the data, what the vehicles are doing and what the criminals are doing and what the patterns are, because that's equally as important to understanding what may happen going on in the future. So very interesting stuff. Duma, as always, it's great to chat to you and catch up with what's happening at Tracker and the research and the latest trends that you've picked up from the last 6 months. Duma Ngcobo, the Chief Operating Officer at Tracker, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights with us once again.
Thank you, Aki. Farewell.